In the silent, sprawling green oceans of America's national parks, an architectural ghost haunts the landscape. It is an anomaly known to the Internet's digital campfire circles as the stairs in the woods. These are not quaint ruins. They are stark, solitary structures of stone, decaying wood, or weeping rust, standing defiant against the wilderness. They ascend towards nothing, offering a pathway to empty air. They are a profound and unsettling violation of logic. According to the Whispers, to even approach them is an act of foolishness. To climb them is to gamble with your very existence. Most will dismiss these tales with a comfortable, rational explanation, one readily supplied by official sources. These are merely the resilient skeletons of long-vanished homesteads or fire lookout towers. The wood has rotted, they say, but the stone and metal foundations remain. This explanation is a soothing balm for a troubled mind, but it is a fiction. It frays and tears apart under the slightest scrutiny. Too many of these staircases exist in primordial forests, miles from any registered settlement or road, on terrain hostile to construction. Some are crafted from geology that does not belong, composed of strange, obsidian-like stone in regions of sandstone and shale. Their design often betrays function, with risers too tall for a human gait or angles that defy architectural sense. The official story is a smokescreen, deliberately deployed to obscure a truth that is not singular, but layered. The mystery of the stairs is a palimpsest, where a modern conspiracy has been written over a failed scientific endeavor which itself was scrawled atop a secret so ancient it predates the concept of America itself. Long before European sails scarred the horizon, the inhabitants of this land knew its true nature. They were not a single people, but many tribes who shared a profound and cautious understanding of the earth. Their lore did not speak of gods in the sky, but of a world interwoven with another, a place of profound power and terrifying indifference, which they called the Silent Glade, or the world asleep. And they knew that in certain places, the veil between these worlds grew thin. These were not locations to be worshipped, but to be feared. They were wounds in the fabric of reality. Among them were the enigmatic Anchor Builders, a forgotten proto-tribe spoken of only in the most guarded legends of their successors. They believed that these rifts in reality were unstable and could migrate, bleeding chaos, into the land. Their entire culture was a ritual of containment. They would find these places of power, these spatial wounds, and perform rites not of opening, but of binding. They built the first stairs, not as pathways, but as anchors. Each step was a hieroglyph, a piece of a complex three-dimensional equation designed to hold the rift in place. The materials were chosen with shamanic care: stone from meteorite craters, wood from trees struck by lightning, anything that had been touched by forces beyond the terrestrial. Their rituals were harrowing, often involving sacrifices intended not to appease a deity, but to feed the anomaly, to satiate its alien hunger and lull it into dormancy. These stairs led nowhere, because they were not meant to be climbed. They were meant to be a cage. And the lore warned that to ascend them was to offer oneself to the prisoner within. Centuries passed. The Anchor Builders vanished, their knowledge dissolving into fragmented myths. Then, in the mid-20th century, in the crucible of the Cold War, the secret was unearthed again. In an era of unprecedented paranoia, the United States government was locked in a shadow war, seeking any conceivable advantage. Clandestine agencies with blank check budgets delved into the occult, the paranormal, the very fringes of science. It was in this fevered search that an analyst, compiling disparate reports from the Department of the Interior, noticed a pattern. Recurring incidents of compass deviation, temporal displacement, and acute psychological distress among park rangers, all clustering around specific, remote geographical points. These points perfectly correlated with the locations of the ancient stair ruins. Thus, Project Census was born. The name was a masterstroke of bureaucratic camouflage. Its public-facing mission was the bland cataloging of geological anomalies. Its true purpose was to investigate, understand, and ultimately weaponize these reality-bending phenomena. Under the cover of lumber operations and mineral surveys, entire towns were built in secret. Hidden behind electrified fences in the deepest woods, places like Observation Site Aleph and Research Station Delta sprang to life. They were hermetically sealed worlds of prefabricated buildings, advanced laboratories, and men who had signed away their lives and identities. These were America's sharpest minds, physicists who dreamed of unified field theory, engineers who built atomic reactors, now living in enforced isolation. These were America's sharpest minds, physicists who dreamed of unified field theory, engineers who built atomic reactors, now living in enforced isolation, their brilliance focused on the impossible structures dragged from native myths. They initially called them spatial nodes, then later, with a dawning horror, non-Euclidean bleed-throughs. The early experiments were seductive in their success. By generating focused electromagnetic fields, they could not only stabilize the anomalies, but interact with them. A sealed, lead-lined box placed on the bottom step would reappear at the top, its internal temperature inexplicably lowered to near absolute zero. A live plant would return, withered and covered in a frost that was not frozen water, but a crystalline structure that defied chemical analysis. The project's military liaisons were ecstatic. They envisioned wormhole-based troop deployment, chronal espionage, weapons that could erase a target from causality itself. The pressure to escalate from inanimate objects to living subjects became immense. Protocols were rewritten, ethical boundaries were dissolved. They were no longer scientists. They were prospectors, drilling into the very source code of the universe, blind to the consequences of a system crash. The date that lives in infamy within the deepest, most redacted archives is October 17, 1963. Station Delta, a sprawling underground facility in Oregon's remote wilderness, was preparing for its magnum opus. Their target was Node 7, a colossal, menacing staircase of black, basalt-like stone of pre-Columbian origin. The goal was audacious and arrogant, not just to stabilize the node, but to force it open, creating a sustained, traversable gateway. According to the fragmented, traumatized testimony of the sole survivor, a perimeter guard stationed 2 miles out, the event began not with a bang, but with a terrifying subtraction. Sound ceased. Not just the hum of the station's generators, but the wind in the trees, the calls of birds, the entire sonic landscape was surgically excised from reality. Then came the visual distortions. The guard watched through his binoculars as the very fabric of space around Station Delta began to liquefy. The sky above it folded, revealing for a gut-wrenching second a panorama of churning, violet nebulae and constellations unknown to any human chart. Trees bent at impossible angles as if made of wax. The concrete bunkers of the station itself began to flicker, their solidity becoming a mere suggestion. It was not an explosion, it was an ontological collapse, a reality hemorrhage where the fundamental laws of physics were being overwritten by a hostile and incomprehensible operating system. The 47 souls inside Station Delta did not die. The concept of their existence was being systematically deleted. For a few horrifying moments, the guard witnessed personnel through the facility's thick quartz windows not screaming, but caught in temporal loops. Their bodies. For a few horrifying moments, the guard witnessed personnel through the facility's thick quartz windows, not screaming, but caught in temporal loops, their bodies grotesquely smeared across seconds of time before simply winking out. The breach didn't just kill, it unhappened things. The government's response was not one of rescue, but of absolute, terrified containment. An elite military unit, one that didn't officially exist, was deployed with a single directive: sterilize. This liquidation team was not composed of soldiers, but of men trained to erase history. They wore environmental suits not for radiation, but for the risk of causality contamination. They dismantled what was left of the station, using experimental sonic pulverizers and chemical agents to break down every structure to dust, which was then sealed in lead-lined containers and buried in the deepest oceanic trenches. Every document, every photograph, every piece of research from Project Census across the country was incinerated. They conducted a multi-year disinformation campaign, planting the seeds of the old farmhouses story in local papers and historical societies. The project, and the secret towns it spawned, were excised from the American story with surgical precision. But they failed in one critical aspect. The ancient staircase, Node 7, remained. It stood unscratched, unmarked, indifferent to their most advanced demolition technology. It had absorbed the energy of their weapons, its surface not even warm to the touch. It was an immovable, silent testament to their failure. And so it stands today, a scar on the landscape. The paranormal phenomena so often reported in its vicinity. The missing time, the disembodied voices whispering in languages that never existed, the fleeting glimpses of figures moving with a disjointed, unnatural gait, are not ghosts in the traditional sense. They are the aftershocks. They are the echoes of Station Delta's final moments, still reverberating through a wounded reality. The staircase leads to nowhere, because nowhere is precisely what it guards. It is a monument to the day a handful of brilliant men knocked on a door they should have never found, and the silence on the other side answered by consuming them whole. And one must ask the final, terrifying question. When that door was forced ajar, what else, in that brief, terrible moment, might have learned the way into our world?